You know, in this business, I've had the opportunity of speaking with many very interesting people. In that crowd would also be included Mfundishi Shaha Maasi, who used to be the chief of security for famed poet Amiri Baraka. We had the privilege of speaking with him at his home in Baltimore, Maryland, to discuss with him his thoughts on black activism, health, spirituality, as well as history, among other things. We hope that you'll enjoy this interview with him. Describe for us, if you would, your time securing Amiri Baraka.
Let me begin when I first was aware of his presence. I'd heard of him, had never met him. One evening, traveling from downtown Newark, East Orange, it's in New Jersey, he got on the bus, he, his wife, and his young son, I believe it was Obalaji at the time. And I knew who he was, but I just observed him. I saw his focus, very conscious, very intense. And as he arrived at his stop, which was about 10 minutes before mine, he just nodded to me, And I was like, wow, he's connected to the people. Now, a few years after that, being part of I was co-chairman of the BCD, Black Community Development and Defense. And we got involved with the Committee for Unified Newark CFUN. And Imama was involved, he was in the leadership of that organization. And then they connected with the US organization, Balana Karinga. So the three organizations came together, BCD, CFUN, and US organization. And I was chosen to protect Imama because of my years in security through the Marine Corps and in martial arts. Primarily, we would travel. This is when he was on the road, going to universities, speaking at universities. And I would travel with him and make it possible for him to focus on his job, not being concerned about his safety. So in the cadre, it was Imamu, myself, Jita Hadi, one of my black belts, who helped with the security effort and also sold the books. He set up the stand, and then with Larry Neal, Brother Kitab, one of Imamu's playwrights. We traveled for about 3 or 4 years to various universities where he would present his poetry, give a small talk after the poetry. This gave me insight into his mind. He was very, very clear on what he wanted to communicate to people. He wanted people to wake up to the conditions in America. He is considered a firebrand, and many people speak about him in a negative way because he made people uncomfortable. But he wanted to arouse people from the false comfort of their status in America. His thing was, you may have a comfortable lifestyle, but you're still, I would call it a comfortable slave, right? I often say our people have found comfort in slavery, in captivity. I learned that through Imam Baraka. His poetry struck at the heart of people. It created fear, need, and desire. Fear of it, the need to be away from it, away from the reality, and a desire to make change they didn't have the capacity to bring to bear. So I would say to you, my experience with him was being exposed to the intensity of his mind, his commitment. He was fearless. His commitment to his mission, to awaken the capacity and the consciousness of people on all sides. awaken the consciousness of black people to their true condition, and to whites and others of the condition that they had imposed upon black people. Because that's liberation. Both sides are suffering. Black people are suffering, white people are suffering. White people, because of the damage they've inflicted, they're aware of it subconsciously, but they don't face it consciously. You can't transform yourself if you don't take a conscious appraisal of what you've done. So the behavior is still off balance. This is what Imam would try to address when he was alive. In the 60s and 70s, he was really focused on awakening the people to the condition. So his poetry, very intense. His interactions, very intense. But if a person's sleeping and the building is on fire, you might have to, you get my point. That was his approach. Get your attention by any means necessary. What he did for me was help me to understand the true role of art as a discipline to awaken people, to bring them to consciousness, but to use the ethos, their natural instincts, bring that to bear, right? So they would find comfort in the task because the understanding was deep within them. If that could be brought to the surface, then that was half the job. So it was really an endeavor to win the minds of people. My job was to secure him so he would not be distracted by what people said or any other concerns. That was my job. I feel very thankful that in communication with one of the elders from that day, he said to me, we often discuss that under your protection, no one was ever hurt or injured. That was my thing, not to have confrontation, but to avoid, to be so structured and so organized that we move in such a way that we minimize any possibility of conflict. That's what I'm saying.
Now, you had protected him from what year to what year? And there's a reason I'm asking.
1967 to about 1971.
Okay, so this was, you could say, somewhat at the height of the COINTELPRO or FBI assault on Black America. Describe, what was that like at that time? Because we had witnessed a lot of assassinations, there were a lot of imprisonments, there were a lot of raids on black organizations, such as the Black Panther Party, Nation of Islam. What was that like, you coming up during that turbulent time, witnessing that, you having to protect the Amiri? Talk a little bit about that.
We were very aware of the threat, and we would receive threats. But I'm saying to you, are so structured, the security, that we never had confrontation. See, we had the concept of avoidance being the best source of protection. When we would travel without drawing attention. We were dressed in civilian clothes. We wouldn't wear our traditional clothing, right? We didn't break speed limits. We didn't weave in and out. You understand what I'm saying? We avoided conflict. Now, to get directly to your question, there was intense pressure from the Newark police force. And being that Black Community Defense Development was located in East Orange, the neighboring town of Newark, there was also some intensity from that police force also. But what they saw was that we were not in violation of any laws. We were about the liberation of the people. So what I'm saying, we avoided conflict with the police. Now, there was one incident when Amiri was going through his court trial. And shortly after they came to verdict, the judge said there shouldn't be any outbursts, anything like that. Some of the brothers responded, and gave the salute and whatnot. And the judge wanted to hold them in contempt. So we almost had a confrontation. One of the deputies said, and I knew him because we went to school together, And so I understand a phone call has been made to bring back up, He said that wouldn't be good, that would be hurtful to everybody. I said, no, that's just a rumor, we haven't called for any backup, They arrested one of our men, and he struggled, they couldn't even move him. They couldn't move him. I said, don't move, just go with him. And that was resolved in time, He went through the court process and got a minor fine and whatnot. There was another incident now that comes to mind when Amiri was in the bank across from the Seafront headquarters, which was on 502 High Street. It was a bank which was on the opposite corner. And Officer Hunt, who was known to provoke black people, he came in and began harassing Amiri. And I wasn't on that scene, I was in the headquarters, but one of my men was covering Amiri. And Officer Hunt made a gesture with a shotgun, And the brother Insanji, who's passed, he's been gone for 30 years now, 40 years. He struggled with the shotgun, to take possession of the shotgun. And he was arrested, and he went through the court system and got considerable time in the county jail. Those were the only two incidents.
1967, that was when the famous Newark Rebellion had kicked off. And of course, that was the same year, during that time when the city had been under martial law, that the first Black Power Conference was held. Were you also protecting Amiri during that time? Were you a part of the Black Power Conference?
I was on the outskirts at that time. I hadn't been promoted to, so my answer to your question is the first Black Power Conference I was on the periphery, While the following Black Power Conferences, I was chief of security. So his primary protection for the first was the city Seafront Committee for Unified North. I had not been integrated, use that term, into the force at that time.
Well, that brings me to another question you were speaking concerning, as we know, the Black Power Convention, Black Power Conference had brought together several black organizations. A comrade of Kwame Ture, who used to be known, of course, as Stokely Carmichael, had told me, I'm not going to mention who he is at this time, had said that there was a slight rivalry between Mr. Baraka and Kwame. What I wanted to know is, what was the relationship that you all had? Okay, and of course, as we spoke about COINTELPRO, and they had infiltration with organizations fighting one another, black organizations. What was the relationship that the Committee for Unified, right, yes sir, pardon me for sounding a little illiterate just now. What was the relationship that you all had with other organizations, the nationalist ones in particular, such as the Black Panther Party, the US organization, All African Revolutionary People's Party, Nation of Islam, etc.? What was that like?
We had a direct alliance with US organization. In fact, I had a strong relationship with Maulana Karenga. I even pulled security for him on occasion when he would come to Newark. And I was involved in training some of his people who were involved in the Simba-Wachunga. So I had a relationship with him. There was no conflict there. We were strong allies. The Panthers, there was some struggle between us organization and the Panthers, but no direct conflict between Seafront or BCD.
What I want to know now, many people are unaware that the Nation of Islam's Newark Mosque, Mosque number 25, you had established the first martial arts program. What I'm curious about is that, of course, at that time, many people, many black nationalists and many Pan-Africanists in particular, felt that the Nation of Islam in some way or another had something to do with the death of Malcolm X. Despite that, what I would like to know, and I'm quite sure there were people in your circle who may have thought that, why did you help the Nation of Islam's Newark Mosque set up a mosque? How did that come about? And I'm not necessarily saying that you perhaps believe they had something to do with Malcolm's death, but how did that come about? Because I noticed during that time, there was still a lot of, despite that belief, there was still a lot of collaboration between the nationalists and the nation. How did you come about that? Was that Minister James Shabal's idea?
I was released from the Marine Corps in 1962. I wasn't discharged until 64. But I was very frustrated after my release from active duty. And I joined the mosque out of that frustration. And as you know, there was a requirement for brothers to sell newspapers and bean pies. Well, I was heavily involved in martial arts training at that time under Master James Cheatham, who was also a member of the nation. And I explained to Captain John at the time that I would be willing to teach the FOI, but I really didn't have time to sell bean papers and bean pies and newspapers. And he gave me that opportunity. So that's how I began teaching in the mosque. I enjoyed it because I'll say this to you. Messenger Elijah Muhammad made the first call to black men to stand up. Whether we're nationalists, whatever we call ourselves, we received a call from that man in the early 60s. We were all asleep. We were all under the banner of Negroes. Let's be real about this. We were eating pork, we were drinking alcohol, we were running the streets. He pulled us up. I didn't realize that I was a black man until I heard the first lecture. So I want to establish that. What I know about myself today is rooted in the call of Elijah Muhammad. Right? To get to your question. I functioned within the mosque as a karate instructor until it became impossible for me to remain there because there was a feeling that I was getting special treatment. I was approached by some of the brothers, unofficially now, wasn't official, because my lieutenant was also in the Marine Corps, and we had a camaraderie between us. But he advised me that I should toe the line, in the FOI, and I appreciated that. But unofficially, a couple of brothers stepped to me and advised me that I was considered to be receiving special privilege. So if that's the case, I just need to leave. So I withdrew from the mosque, and I was told not to come within 4 square blocks. I went through the whole process. But there was never any animosity, never any negative interaction. As far as the assassination of Al-Hajj Malik al-Shabazz, I have no knowledge of that.
Oh, no, I wasn't at all asking you.
Yeah, I want to be clear about that.
If you know who killed her, no, that wasn't my...
I understand. I want to be clear about that. Because I was in the mosque at the time, all right, left shortly before the assassination. I want to be clear that there was never any talk or undertones, any mention of any harm to him. That never happened. I understand that was told that Brother Talmadge Hare, who was convicted, I was told he was once a member of the mosque. I never saw him. Never heard his name. So I just want to be clear about that. Let me tell you that I traveled once with Master Cheatham to Mosque number 7 in New York. And Mr. Malcolm was there that day. And when he entered the hall, that brother radiated a power that I couldn't believe. I was mesmerized. I really was. And he said something, I'll never forget, I'll share this with you. He was speaking in general about the hatred and animosity in America. He said, they're going to take my head. He didn't say who. He said, they're going to take my head. And I hope you know what to do when they take my head. It was so powerful, so prophetic, and so fearless that I was just mesmerized that a man could be that calm in the face of impending death, you know? But he spoke as though it was going to come because of his outspokenness and lack of popularity in America. He never indicated who they were, but we understood what he was saying. For this reason, even as we do this evening, it's very unpopular for black men to stand up in America. When you do, there's a mark placed on you. I understand that. But I can't be quiet about what I see. And I'm telling you that we're where we are, and the struggle is what it is because of the lack of understanding and capacity of our people. After all we've been through, and I got this from Malcolm. I hear this from Minister Farrakhan, because I watch him often on YouTube. He said, our people are very difficult to help. That's reality. We have not attained the capacity, the same capacity that Imam Amiri Baraka strove for in the 60s and 70s, the very capacity that Maulana Karenga strove for in the 60s and 70s, the very capacity that Huey Newton, Bobby Seale strove for in the 60s and 70s. We still haven't arrived at that point. We're what I call shattered and scattered. Shattered from the Ma'afa, from the Middle Passage, and scattered, living scattered lives. So this is what I'm saying to you. I saw the sacrifices of Imam, of Malcolm, of Elijah Muhammad, even Minister Farrakhan, the pressure he was under and the pressure he still experiences by certain communities who are uncomfortable with his statements. I've seen all these sacrifices, and our people are still sleeping. They're waiting for someone to come do it for them. When I say it, I'm saying bring them to a point of consciousness, the way they function, not caught up in dysfunction, but where they function for their own benefit. We're so divided. There was a time in East Orange, New Jersey, where I lived. Your complexion, my complexion, we wouldn't be in the same room together. You would live in East Orange, or in Montclair, Upper Montclair. You'd be in Upper Montclair because of your skin tone. I'd be in East Orange. Brother would be in Newark. Even if that wasn't a fact, that's how we would classify it. Dark, you from Newark. Brown skin, kind of reddish, you from East Orange, right? Clear and a very light-skinned brother, you're from Montclair. And people base their relationships upon that. You wouldn't speak to me because of your skin color. I might not speak to this brother. Plantation system. Have we gone beyond that? Not really. Straight hair, nappy hair, braids. Sisters still caught up into that. Brothers caught up in status. Who has a good job, who's not as affluent, who's not as educated. What does all that mean when, as Malcolm said, we're all considered to be niggers? That's where I'm coming from. So my time spent with Amiri was really understanding this. His poetry really drove this home to me. Seeing the organization structure that came under Maulana Karenga that helped me to understand the need to organize high level. Seeing the continuous effort of the Nation of Islam to this day to bring our brothers to a level of operational unity, even extending the call to outside the boundaries of the nation. You see Hispanics, you see Asians sitting in the audience when Mr. Farrakhan speaks. So you'll see some whites. So this thing is broad, and see, people have to understand, we're suffering. Many people are suffering. Whites are suffering, poor whites. Black people suffering, Asians suffering, Hispanics, but we're divided. Because I don't want to be over there with those poor crackers. That's how we talk. I don't want to be over there with those niggas. The Asian, I don't want nothing to do with black people. They're the downfall of America. We hear about them before we even come to America. And Hispanics struggling to get their place in society to step over top of us. That's real. But none of us think about the Native American up there on the reservation. So we're shattered mentally and we're scattered. And there are those who take advantage of that.
So do you feel that, I should ask you, as we get ready to conclude this first segment, how would Mr. Baraka, you feel, deal with the reality of a President Trump administration?
This is a good place to close. And let me say to you that Khalil brought me into Newark, New Jersey.
And that's your son.
My son Khalil, who you know, brought me into Newark, New Jersey for a seminar 3 months before Amiri Baraka passed away. We were setting up for the seminar. It was quite warm that day. I said, I'm going to step outside and get some air. I had not seen Imam Baraka in 30 years or more. And not seen him face to face, right? I walk outside, and who's on the corner? Amiri Baraka. I said, Imam, well, how you doing? He said, hey, Mfundishi, how are you? And what did he say immediately? He said, it's still the same, isn't it? I said, yes, sir, it is. Then some brothers gathered around and we were talking. But to get to your question, to answer directly, what I knew of him in the 60s and 70s, and what I saw in him that day was still the awareness there was so much work to be done, and that we have been constricted by the system. So whoever sits at the head of that system is orchestrating the constriction. That would be his position.
This is part 2 of our interview with Mfundishi Shaha Maasi. During this segment, we spoke with him about what is popularly known as Kupagana Nguma, or African martial arts, as well as spirituality. I was always taught that Kupagana Nguma was African martial arts, but we had spoke earlier. You disagree with that, if I heard you correctly. What exactly is Kupagana Nguma?
Well, to be exact, it was never intended to be a form of African karate. And many people have misunderstood that. In fact, there are factions across this country that have adopted the terminology, but don't understand the original intent. Traveling with Amiri Baraka, I was exposed to his intensity and his passion with regard to black art. The black art could transform the minds of our people. In fact, if I may, I have something I'd like to read to you.
Oh, go right ahead.
Can I do this?
Please, definitely.
The artist's role is to raise the consciousness of the people, to make them understand life, the world, and themselves more completely. That's how I see it. Otherwise, I don't know why you do it, Amiri Baraka. He made it clear. And I remember this quote from when we were traveling. So my effort was to utilize martial arts as a means of awakening our people through discipline. Not as a form of karate, but as a means of transformation. One good practice could be Ganengumi if they never stepped inside the dojo or kicked a punch. It was to understand the mind, how it functions, and how we had been co-opted by the system. That was the purpose. The co-founder and myself, and he's Mfundishi Tolona, I shared my title with him. We devised a method through raising skill level, which would stimulate consciousness and intelligence, to allow oneself to see their behavior, their functioning, and to raise themselves through skill levels that could be involved in kicking and punching, in breathing exercises, in yoga. So you didn't have to be a fighter to be part of Kubi Ganengumi.
Now I must ask you, we see your name, you have the name Mfundishi, and we see this term being thrown all over the internet. What exactly is Mfundishi? Is this a name? Is it a title? For those who don't know, because I see it being used often, Mfundishi so-and-so, Mfundishi this person, Mfundishi that person. What exactly is that?
It was a title given to me by Maulana Karenga because of my service to the community. It means master teacher of an art. That's what it means. It doesn't mean sensei. It doesn't mean sifu. It doesn't mean guru. It means master teacher of an art. So for me, it meant teacher of an art of enhancing intelligence. That's what it meant for me.
So why then do so many black martial arts practitioners have this name?
We seek to empower ourselves individually at the expense of others. You do the work, I see the benefits, and I co-opt your title, your work, through my quest for self-aggrandizement. I understand that, but it's through such a serious feeling of lack that we seek to ride the coattails of those who are actually doing the work. So many call themselves Mfundishi. I'm not going to say it's not authorized because I don't own the title, but it was given to me. But I'm saying this. If they didn't receive the title with Maulana Karenga, it's not authentic. Simple as that. Simple as that.
Now we see that you brought out here for us the whiteboard, and you planned on going over some principles with us. Now what exactly is this here that you plan to describe? It reminds me, because you have it numerically in numerical order, it actually reminds me, of course, of the Nguza Saba of the Kawidama. What exactly is this here?
This, if I can just turn to the side, this represents the 7 levels of body-mind. It's a map for transformation. It means, though we see ourselves physically, we live, we function on 7 levels. Now, on the physical level, we may say that a martial artist can use this, because on the physical level, he's dealing with physical discipline. And that physical discipline sharpens his body and his mind, enables him to see his emotional content. This is very important. Many martial artists never get past this. I'm a tough guy. I'm a champion. I can beat people with my fists and my feet. But if you make me angry, I'll go off. So I'll show you that I have no emotional control. You see it all the time. People go to tournaments and have a tantrum because they didn't win the trophy. Now, when we received these teachings from the Asians, who were the caretakers of the art, they told us that emotional control was key to having true martial arts skill. And they told us that mastering the physical was only the first step.
Now we're going to get back to that. Why do you refer to the Asians as being the caretakers of martial arts?
Because though we know the first people were the first people to resolve conflict through physical confrontation, Africans established the first fighting systems. But as everything else African has fallen into disarray. The Asians modified, classified, and have maintained for thousands of years. In order to understand the art, we had to go to the Asian because the Africans were not available.
So then does that debunk, I don't want to say debunk, how would you respond then to many African-centered or Afrocentric martial arts practitioners who are quick to, I don't want to say boast, but quick to mention that martial arts came out of Africa, came out of Kemet, ancient Egypt? How would you respond to them who actually may disagree with you for saying that?
We can understand that the first people, African people, were the first to resolve conflict through physical interaction. Systems were developed based on the movement of natural forces and the actions of animals. So there were fighting systems developed. But again, I'm saying, as in everything else connected to our people, they had been lost. Now, I'll say this. There are those who, through their research and travel, have rediscovered the fighting arts of Africa. There are very few who have done that. Most read the book, go to a seminar, pick up on some of the principles and practices, and boast that they're also practitioners of the African martial arts, which is not true. I'll give you the example. There's one, Ahati Kalindi Iyi, who has been traveling
In Detroit.
from Detroit. He's been traveling 30 years to amass this information. He's authentic because he's gone to the heart of Africa many times and studied with the practitioners. He's authentic. But there are many who take Asian martial arts and put it under the title of African martial arts. In fact, my son and I, we were accused of that. But we never did that.
I remember as about
We never did that.
That was what was going around.
That was what was going around. This was the essence of Kubigana and Gumi then to this day.
So what we're going to let you do, we're going to allow you to, finish up the list. We don't want to interrupt, but I'm going to interject just to get clarification on which one of these points you're concerned with.
You're clear now?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So on the physical level, we have the challenge of physical discipline. We develop strength, balance, rhythm, coordination, endurance, agility, so forth and so on. That takes place here. Through honing those skills, we find that we become more aware of our emotional content, meaning we become aware of fear, need, and desire, the three basic motivations of human beings. Through martial art training, you become aware of your fear, of your need and your desire. Once you see that, you can modify through the discipline of the training. That puts you in direct contact with your instinctual response. Has your training given you the ability to monitor your instinctual response? Are you ready to fight? Do you freeze or do you run away? Or do you transcend and just observe? Do you monitor your behavior? See, as the swordsman raises the sword in conflict, he has to see the fear and understand the fear. He has to see the need and the desire. He has to overcome the need to fight recklessly, to freeze or to run away. That's because the mind has been refined. See, people talk about the unity of mind and body. You hear that all the time. To unify mind and body, you have to deal with emotional and instinctual content. There's no way to unify mind and body with these two standing in the way. If one hasn't taken their emotional content into consideration and their instinctual response, mind and body cannot be unified. And if mind and body cannot be unified, spiritual level cannot be attained. We talk about it, but it's not attainable unless one understands the way their mind works and the way their mind may be in conflict with the physical. And that's because of the emotional content that has not been resolved. If I'm constantly in the grip of fear, need, or desire, how do you deal with me? Man, I saw the brother the other day, and he was mad at the world. Why? Because I'm fearful? Or you can't get my attention because I'm distracted with my desires? Or I'm overwhelmed with my needs? How do we function if that's the case? If I haven't resolved that, how do we function? How do you get me to function mentally? Say you're my employer or we're business partners, and you're saying, brother just doesn't seem to be with it. He's tense. He's taking time off because he's always sick. He's tired. There's some conflict here. But I think it's due to his emotional state. Because he's always burnt out, he's always in conflict, and I'm concerned with his tendency to be in conflict. And I see how it's wearing him down. See how this works? Then he's always ready to fight. If we're to have an argument, if we're having a conversation, it may turn into an argument. He's not fighting physically, but he's fighting verbally. A simple question turns into a verbal assault. But I look at him, I can see his fists are balled up, he's sweating, and I think he's on the verge of attacking me. Instinctual response. And because of that, he's not meeting the needs of the position which I've offered him. But he's going to get spiritual evaluation. Fine. Does the spiritual evaluation take into consideration of my diet, my state of health, my emotional state, my instinctual response, my state of mind? Because if it doesn't, how can the spiritual evaluation be helpful? The spiritual evaluator, don't they have to take into consideration my mental state? If not, how are you going to help me? You're going to tell me about a cosmic connection? Well, my brother, you're connected to the stars. Okay. I am? Okay. And because you're a Libra, you so-and-so and so-and-so and so. So I would say you're connected with so-and-so deity. Okay, that's fine. But I'm still having problems in my response here. I'm still angry at the drop of a hat. How are you going to help me here? If the ritual can't address my mental state, if it doesn't address my instinctual response, if it doesn't address my emotional content, if it doesn't address my physical state of anxiety, which is reflected in my physical behavior, if it doesn't take all this into consideration, how effective is it going to be? So then you're going to connect me with cosmic forces. Ultimately, with transcendence, where we say God, Buddha, Ulurun, where we go with this. You tell me, this is my help. But I'm still distracted here. I'm distracted because of this instinctual response. I'm distracted because of my emotional content. I'm distracted because of my physical state. The doctor wants me to have bed rest because of my emotional response. He said, man, your kidneys are burnt out. You may need major operation at some point. You may need kidney transplant. That's physical, but it's because of your emotional state. It's because of your instinctual response. Because your mind is cluttered and distracted, and you need to have a grip on yourself. But it's not happening. How does this help me? And I keep pointing to this because our people are very spiritually inclined. And I respect that, I honor that. And we run to various spiritual teachers, all types. But if we check our behavior, we have to ask yourself, how effective has this been? I'm still in confusion. I'm still distracted. I'm still suffering from mental addictions, maybe not drugs, but I need certain things. Mentally, I need certain things. I need approval. I must have companionship. You must respect me, or you have a problem with me. That's my mentality. And if we have a problem, I'm going to knock you down because I'm going to fight. Some people may run away. Some may freeze and shut down. But me, I'm going to attack you. It's fight, flight, or freeze. See? It's based upon my emotional state, which is anger. I'm very angry. And you have to know that. You say, but brother, you're attending so. Why hasn't it helped? Don't ask me that. That's not your business. And my fist is balled up.
So what part does meditation play in all this?
This mental, you notice, is right in the middle. This is the balance. You have 3 below and 3 above. This is to observe one's behavior.
The mental.
The mental. Where am I right now? In the way that I'm thinking, in the way that I'm responding. Am I mindful of where I am right now? At the moment of conflict and confrontation, where am I right now? Let me not go there. I'm ready to go off, but where am I right now? I'm in traffic, I'm in a hurry, and this car is in front of me. Get out of my way. Man, where am I right now? That constant response hardwires us to conflict unless we can see it. Also, I might say, for black people, because of what we've experienced in the Middle Passage, all of this is scattered and shattered.
So then you agree with Dr. Joy DeGruy and others who have said that black people are still traumatized as a result of the Black Holocaust.
You got it right, exactly.
So what I want to know is that, okay, over the past 10 years, we have seen the whole law of attraction phase, if you, I don't want to say phase is the word, trend, manifesting your desires, using your mind. And the thing that has always gotten me, it seems that most of the individuals who seem to be benefiting from the law of attraction concept seem to be white people. I'm noticing that many black practitioners that will teach this, they don't seem to be benefiting from that. What do you think? Do you feel that that's somehow being affected by our situation in America, the racism, white supremacy?
Of course, we're not addressing the basic issue. We're distracted through our experience. So there's no law of attraction working for us. We're distracted. We don't even believe in the law of attraction. Not truly. Because it's based on behavior. Okay, law of attraction. Am I attracting positive forces or negative forces? If I understand that, then I modify my behavior through monitoring so that I can draw on positive forces and use the law of attraction to my benefit. How many are even aware of that? That's my question.
So do you believe that there's been an intentional plan to keep black people distracted? And you know, you mentioned diet, and the reason I'm saying that is because, as you know, most of the liquor stores in our community, the fast food restaurants in our communities, do you feel that that's by design to keep us below the mental, as you were saying?
Of course, that's part of the plan. That's part of the strategy. To distract and to destroy. Through diet, we learn, we benefit not only through the mouth gate where we eat, but we're affected and influenced by the eye gate and the ear gate. What we see and what we hear influences what we eat and what we do. Yes.
So what steps do you recommend? And I know, Mfundishi, you're not at all claiming to be, quote, the leader or even a leader of the
No.
black community, but I would say, what would you recommend though, in your time in this struggle for black liberation? What would you recommend? How do you recommend that we attain balance, if you would? And I know you gave this, but how could we apply this, if you would?
Through the practice of mindfulness, you have to ask some questions. In my state of physical desire, for whatever that is, where is my consciousness and energy right now? In my emotional state, whether it's fear, need, and desire, where is my energy and consciousness right now? In my instinctive response, right? Fight, flight, or freeze, where is my energy and consciousness right now? In my mental state, am I deceived by my thoughts? Where am I right now? Those first 4 levels have to be considered before we even talk about anything spiritual. That's my suggestion. We have to know where we are at all times. What is my behavior? What is my input? What is my response? What is my interaction? Or what are my interactions? That's very fundamental, but it's very basic. This is what it means to sit down and take stock of ourselves. When we talk about meditation, this is meditation. It's not drifting to some far off space where we feel relaxed and blissful. Because the world is still going on. When you come back from your bliss trip, the reality is still is still there for you to face. We have to look at our emotional content, our instinctive response, our mental, the way we process information mentally, which affects our physical behavior. That's my suggestion. Mindfulness is the key. Without that, there's no change. In our class, we say Dikatisa Ngulo. It means rejuvenation of energy.
And what language is that from?
That's in Kikongo.
I'm saying what region is that?
From the Congo.
From the Congo.
From the Congo. Dikatisa Ngulo. Rejuvenation of energy. Through these very methods right here.
And so I must, as we conclude, what are your thoughts concerning, we've seen for quite some time within the holistic community, within the black community, Afrocentric community, we've seen many practitioners of crystals and Reiki. How do you feel about those that rely on crystals for energy or to attain what you're speaking about?
Yeah, they are important if we include a mindful practice. What is it that I'm using the crystal for? Crystal means crystallized energy. So am I using that crystallized energy to awaken a chakra? Can I be mindful of the chakra? If I have the key to open the door, am I mindful of the room that I enter? So if we use these elements, these implements, with mindfulness, with the accent on being mindful, then they can be very, very important in our transformation.
Now, this is going to be the final thing we go over. You would. For quite some time, we've heard people say that one of the biggest problems of people of African descent in the diaspora in particular, African Americans specifically, is that we've practiced religions that do not belong to us and that we should return back to our traditional religions, Ifa, Akan, the Huzia, Yoruba, etc., Voodoo. What's your thoughts about that? Do you feel that our problem, major problems, is that we're not practicing the religion of our ancestors, as many have said?
The key, once again, is how has my practice modified my behavior. If you find me offensive in my treatment of you and others, you're measuring my behavior. If my practice hasn't modified my behavior, how effective is it? See, that's the key. If the practice doesn't address the basic behavior, which we must become mindful of, then it's not being effective. We can't utilize a thing on name value, on words. Can I apply it to myself and my condition? That is the key.
Well, thank you very much, Shaha Mfundishi Maasi. You've given us several jewels of wisdom, and we hope that you join us again soon.
It will happen.
Well, thank you very much.
For
I'm going to
sure.
try to reach over, shake your hand, because I
Sure.
know we something to talk. Thank you very much,
Sure.
dear brother.
Sure. Thank you. Peace to you.
Now, I just want to ask a quick question, because I just think it's just seven-level system. How, I'm just thinking like, yesterday they had this whole mass shooting, and I'm just thinking of all these different mass shootings, and so many of those different levels, I mean, the physical level, the emotional, instinctual, mental, spiritual, seem there. I'm pretty sure you can peg different parts in different stories. How do you analyze or apply, how would you fit your 7 levels, or how would you diagnose these mass shooters using the 7 levels? Because
Well, they're using the physical means. They're using weapons, right? They're using their bodies to activate the weapons, right? But it's the emotional content. It's the instinctual reaction. It's the state of mind. See, I'm going to go somewhere else with this now. And as a practitioner, I think you'll understand where I'm coming from. When this is out of alignment, it's easy to get snatched. You know what I'm saying? Psychically, spiritually, mentally snatched by the forces that you're very well aware of. As one of my students here, a very good brother, who's a telecommunication engineer, when he informed me that the methods and the instruments are used to pull the code out of the air, I said, you gave me a serious teaching there, brother. The air is pregnant with energy. And you were saying Ephra, with entities. When we're not aligned, a portal opens and we get snatched. So I'm not so sure that all these shootings are based on some conspiracy. I believe people are getting snatched. They're deranged. On another level, we know that because of the energy and behavior, that negative entities are moving, roving, looking for places to go. Looking for someone that's, boom, I'm in you right now. Well, he never acted that way before. We never saw that in him. No, you didn't. But something was festering and he was open to a negative influence. Very real. Our people knew this. Years and years ago on plantation, you don't think we understood this? Back on the continent, you don't think we understood this? In Jamaica, I know my people understand this. Man, be careful about the duppy, you know. Duppy snatcher. Yeah. Be careful what you think. You open your mind, duppy jump in. That's real. They know it. They know it. When I say they, those who control us do this. Do an investigation of the EST organization, EST, under Werner Earhart. See what he was doing in Big Sur, California, back in the 60s, educating people about mindfulness. CEOs would go for a weekend, a prayer weekend, and study mindfulness. How can I use my mind in a more effective way? They learn these things. That's why Europeans try to get into Hebrew. Say, man, I'm going to call the spirit. I call Ogun. Yeah. I understand Ogun because I was born under iron, born in the year of the Iron Snake, and been a warrior all my life. And anyone who serves military, we have to understand this, even for white people, military, police, they're under Ogun. They share some of the power of Ogun. We have to know that. When my enemy has access to the same forces that I have access to, I need to understand that. because the forces deal with those who qualify. They ain't not looking at no black or white. We may think that, but it's energy. Energy. Because if it was just black and white, we would not have fallen under control of the white man. Certain rules we broke and laws that we broke left us wide open to be conquered by white people.
A lot of people don't wish to admit that.
They don't get that.
That was the old school nation teaching.
There you go.
Shabazz, he rejected the 12 and he deviated it.
That's right. Well, and we don't want to deal with that.
My professor Yusuf Ali used to say all the time.
I want to, oh man. It's like sometimes when, sometimes you have a conversation with somebody and they say something that resonates, kind of make you tear a little. And so I was just, as you were saying, like you kept saying, the military, they have something of Ogun.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And then I was like, okay, Ogun, right? Now I knew, I was familiar, but I was like, let me just research it real quick. Now, of course, this is Wikipedia, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this is what, just listen to what it says, right? In Orisha, Loa, and Voodoo, he is a warrior and a powerful spirit of metalwork.
Mm-hmm.
Of metalwork, right?
Yep.
But how do you spell Ogun? O-G-U-N.
Oh, yes.
What do? They always take from us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Take the O off. What does it leave you with? A gun.
That's it.
Power.
Mm-hmm.
Military.
Sometimes you see the symbol of Ogun, it's a pistol. When they set up the shrine, you see the pistol. They know this.
The barrel. The circle of that.
They may say Odin, but they connect Odin with Ogun.
That's right.
Odin!
And Vulcan too. Remember
Well, yes.
Vulcan is the god.
Yeah.
Vulcan, yeah.
They know what they're doing. They're saying, Negroes, keep chasing Jesus. We got something else. I'm not coming down on Jesus. That's not my point. I'm saying we have to take it all into consideration. All of it. Meaning, are you going to strike me with your foot, your knee, your elbow, your head, a stick? Take it all into consideration. I'm not omitting anything. I'm not overlooking anything. I don't look any religion, any philosophy, any practice. I take it all into consideration. Because my grandmother was very powerful root worker, but her basis was Jesus. But one day I made a joke about vibration, and she just said, boy, don't you ever play with vibration. So I had a different understanding. She's saying there's some things that I don't talk about. You looking at one thing, but there's other stuff going on. Don't play with vibration. I got it. Because she healed herself twice, and she would heal others through prayer. So she had see, this is the thing, brother. We black folks, we have a special connection because of our time on this earth and our relationship with the Spirit. So no matter what religion or philosophy we go into, we still have a direct connection to the root of this thing. No matter what religion you go into, you have a connection with vital forces. We have to know that. So you can be a Christian, you still got connection with vital force. You can be a Hebrew, you still have connection with vital force. Nothing obliterates that. Now I'm not speaking chauvinistically. I'm just saying that the one who has the longest history in relationship with the forces are the ones that know the forces best, have developed a relationship. If you go to the corner store as a child, if you've been going there for years, don't you develop a relationship with the owner of the store? He sees you coming, oh, I know just what you want. Tell your mom she can pay me next week. I know just what you want. Wow. How do you know? He's been coming in here for years. I know the family. That's a relationship. We have the same relationship with the forces. So even though we may not come through the regimentation, which will refine a relationship, we still have relationship. Okay? There we go.
Thank you very much for joining us. We hope that you will join us again soon. I'm Doshon Farad, and you've been watching Right and Exact.